Alright, so last week I made my very first lesson plan ever, and so I would like to use that as talking about just kind of my thoughts about lesson plan creation. One of the things that I really found to be helpful was at the beginning of the semester when we were able to when we were able to listen to different people talk about how they made lesson plans. One of the things that I felt was the best piece of advice was to start with the I do, you do, we do. Here it's talking about not the guided instruction, excuse me, the focused instruction right here. Um, to go ahead and fill out these three categories towards the end, I felt was very helpful, and I feel is very helpful because I'm going to come up with those ideas first when I'm thinking about, oh, well, what do I want to do to make the lesson? And from there, I can start thinking about, oh, well, how do I want to scaffold various things, such as, the instruction that I'm talking about at the very beginning, how I might want to scaffold some of the activities in which I'm partnering with the students, and then, how do I want to end it? And also, that then led me to thinking about, oh, well, how would I close out a lesson? Most of the lessons I've been seeing lately have been closing out with a few minutes left, and then, okay, class, the bell's about to ring. Um, but I do like, how there's, transition from previous activity. It's difficult for me right now to go ahead and do that because of the fact that I have not taught a class yet, so I don't have a previous activity with the class. But it does make, since I only observe my high school once a week, I'm able to really kind of pinpoint, okay, well, what did the class just do? Because oftentimes I'm seeing the lessons start with either callbacks to that or with the teacher saying, okay, does anybody have any questions from the homework? And kind of using that to connect with the focus instruction. So I have been seeing teachers kind of do that, just more in informal manners. Um, then after I filled those out, I kind of went up to thinking about, oh, well, you know, what would kind of be, the instructional learning points of the lesson, and also what would be some of my assessments. Would I want to do some sort of formal assessment? Would I want to do an informal assessment? Thinking through any formal assessments I do, I'm going to probably have to grade and give back. Do I want the students to receive that kind of feedback? So those are some thoughts that I had going through my head as I was kind of planning a mock lesson. I see the language functions and the advanced language demands, and I see. Oh, excuse me, that was additional. Apparently, I can't read. Anyways, where those are kind of sort of like, oh, those are peppered in throughout the lesson. I think because on the lesson plan they look like a section, I thought there might be a specific spot in the lesson where that would occur. But now that I've kind of gone through that, I realize, well, that's not very realistic. Now, under here, where talks about standards, I use that as somewhat of a check to see, hey, do my lesson plan go ahead and meet certain standards? And if it doesn't, then I can go ahead and look up the standards and review them and see, oh, I actually need to go ahead and revise my lesson because they're not adequately meeting any of the standards that I would want. The central focus right here, well, that's a nice outline of what's going on during the day, and I see myself being able to, try to come up with, okay, well, if I take all three parts of the activities, the focused, I don't remember its technical name, but the we do and the you do, well, if I can't go ahead and outline that into a single, very clear statement for the content focus, then I might want to go back and double check and see if there is a single focus, or if I might be a little bit all over the map. So I like this section, even though when I just look at it right at the beginning of the lesson plan, it feels a little confusing. I feel like this again serves as a second check to see, okay, am I on track? Am I talking about something that makes sense? Oops, I didn't mean to be on the screencast. So here is the lesson that I wanted to review. Again, if I go down to here, things are scaffolded very well. We have, starting with the focus instruction. So I'm looking at, here, The teacher is talking about spheres and is going to go ahead and utilize hands-on models. I really like that to kind of illustrate, well, how would we utilize circumference and diameter and talk about pi. Um, I really definitely like that because I feel like pi can sometimes be a foreign idea or something where it's like, oh, so it's some sort of number and why would I even care? Um, I like that this is the scaffolding right here that it says students will pick any kind of sphere that they consider that they feel comfortable with or have a preference to, so that they're able to use things that they're already related to. And then here in the guided practice, they're using groups, and the students are participating in the activity. And so again, things are scaffolded really well. And so, students will allow ELs to use their teams as additional resource. So that way they're able to go ahead and utilize other students' knowledge rather than constantly going back to the teacher. I don't see anything wrong with having students go back to the teacher, but I think that's really cool when we're able to allow students to become teacher roles. I think it gives them a little bit more responsibility, and it also kind of helps us. So after the video, this teacher has a little bit more than 55 minutes, and so is allowing a video as kind of a nice break. And so then the students are able to take that idea that the object that they're comfortable with and are able to calculate pi with it. So I really like how what they're interacting with is being kind of interwoven throughout the entire lesson. Now here for the closer, it appears that they are going to go ahead and transition an activity to kind of go ahead and connect what they did with a single object with kind of a universal truth about what pi is and how it relates to circumference and diameter. I noticed that as I moved up, here there's, kind of, okay, here's a summary, here's the hook, which kind of talks about where the intro was. So I like how that has a nice fluid flow from previous activities to the hook and the lesson for the day and to finally the focus instruction. I really appreciate that that's not kind of stagnant or jargon. Here it's talking about how they're going to connect things with the algebraic standpoint. I really like that. I also like how the materials that are going to be used are put into a single list, kind of almost like a column. I think if I was listing them, I would have put them in just like a column list, which I don't think would be wrong, but I also don't think would have the level of clarification that this list does because of the way it's formatted. So I really like that. I like the vocabulary. There's nothing left to chance. Pi, equation, circumference, even solution. I find that interesting. I don't think I would have considered that necessary vocabulary, but I agree with that use. So I don't doubt that at all. I like the discourse. Kind of starting to talk about more kind of overarching ideas. Instructional learning seems to summarize the I do, you do, we do. So I like that. Very clear use of standards, and I feel like there's a very clear connection through that, which is kind of my goal. That's what I'm hoping to go to. I like how relevant skills are listed here as almost kind of the skills that they would use, that the students would use in the the middle or final part of the section. The current focus would be for the day, and I can very clearly see how that identifies in the essential literary strategy, which is going to be kind of the overarching theme for the project.